We're ready?
Yeah.
We're ready? We're ready? This is the Mr. Clean Show here now. I met my friend Daniel here the other day on the, actually I met him years ago because I knew Tally did a free school class and she did Mandela's and stuff.
All right. Yeah, I might not have been with her at the time.
Yeah, I don't think.
Bye bike.
Bye bike! Anyway, the bike fell out. But, anyway, then I saw you on the internet talking about, something popped up about you were doing a healing energy thing, and I said, oh, I'll volunteer for that.
Yeah.
But they just said it already passed, or I should let you talk about it.
Sure. I do some very fascinating energy work if I do say so myself. Energy work is all about being able to move vibrations and even just before you move them to understand them, recognize what's going on in someone's life. And it can have a profound impact on all sorts of areas of health. So you can go anything from identifying primary influences that are driving someone on into the future to helping people to understand why they get grumpy under different circumstances.
Oh.
You can empower wounds to heal much more quickly. There's a broad range of things that are possible, largely because people don't pay attention to it much. It's sort of off the radar of at least Western civilization. You can really call it that. There's so many different places I can begin, but the simplest version is if you imagine that physical structure is actually vibration. It's composed of vibrating energy. And we have various ways of affecting that. We can move our body, which changes everything. And yet, sometimes when we're moving our body, we're actually moving in the same kind of patterns that are involved in ways we might be sick or stuck. So if you are able to navigate between the ways that your thoughts and even spiritual resonance itself affects the patterns of how you move and how you live, you can have a lot more influence over how life goes, both from healing problems, but also to empowering your dreams, to making it much more effective to do the things you want to do in the world.
Wow, that's just what I need.
Have you heard of chakras before?
Yes, yes I have.
What comes to mind? What do you know?
That it's there's certain levels of energy in the body, and there's different, I'm not really too familiar with it, but there's just different, one is like a higher level spiritual thing, and then more physical, and then more grounded, or
so.
That's it.
Yeah,
kind of the basic concept I have.
We can start with that. A lot of different cultures work with energy centers. The Hebrews with the Kabbalah, the Chinese system that involves acupuncture also uses something called Dantian. It's a strong focus on Tai Chi and Qigong, and they're energy centers in the body as well. Some people even associate the Christian sacraments. The Mayans had centers, and all of these centers work in similar ways. They're different perspectives on the same thing. But the basic idea is that our thoughts and feelings have a presence. They exist. They're not just ephemeral, and they're not just neurons firing. There's something happening that's independent of what we think of as physical. So once you recognize that, you can actually learn to feel it. You can learn to feel some of it. And once you can feel it, you can do a lot more to change it. Now these are the same basic principles that are involved in, people who might call themselves psychic readings. And what I do is more mathematical. It's a way of organizing the information that can help people make the most efficient choices possible to change your life. And the idea is, sometimes if you're putting a lot of effort into something, it can be like walking into a wall again and again and again. So in that circumstance, more effort is not really the remedy. And that's the beginning of what I have to give people, is I can help them understand that, a lot of your effort might be misplaced. Fighting this is like hitting the wall. Maybe you might want to step around it, and a wide variety of other responses. Maybe if you're trying really hard to believe positively in something, that hasn't been coming through for some other reason, like perhaps you have something stuck in your system from, a childhood pattern that was taught to you by other people or that you experienced consistently in school. And that pattern has a resonance. It exists. I can see it. And once I can identify it, I can help you identify it. And ideally, shift it with, less strain and pain.
Yeah. Oh, so that's when I spazzed out in the beginning. I didn't really tell.
You have an interesting presence.
That there was that you were talking about doing a video of the process,
Yeah.
and I was like ready to volunteer, and you said, well, it's already done, but you weren't really completely happy with
I
it.
did that, but it didn't work as well. One of the things I do is give people individual sessions. That usually involves them, they just lie down on a massage table. I don't touch much. All I need is for people to be still for a bit and consistent, and I can both feel just by hovering, and look at and see energy emerging from your body. And the different patterns that are there reflect enough for me to know a lot. It's actually quite simple. I'm not seeing much. I'm just seeing splotches of color. But different color.
Oh, you actually see?
I do, yeah. That emerged later in my life when I actually took my glasses off for a long time in an attempt to heal my vision. And I didn't make progress then on the vision, but I did start to recognize colors everywhere. And I think partly because I just stared at them and I couldn't see details, I couldn't read, so my attention shifted. And I started paying attention to all this, and it became quite relevant. Why is there a black splotch there? Why do they look all gray there? Why is there bright red in their third eye? And these things became increasingly meaningful.
Wow. So can we do this production?
Can we do like filming a session? You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't really the best setting for it, but we can do that in the future.
Not today. Yeah. We'll have a massage table or some other
yeah.
setting, and we can talk Tom into coming and helping. Hopefully,
Yeah.
Tom's our cameraman and director here.
Part of the nature of
Put him on the spot. Sorry.
Part of the nature of energetics is that it's a lot less tangible. Literally, we're involved in a web of energy. Everything's energy. So it's important to define clear boundaries on a certain magnitude. Like we want to try to block out some influences so we can focus on other things. So
Yeah.
not in a park, basically. I have.
And you could tell I would really need to calm down and focus.
Maybe don't drink coffee before.
Yeah.
For a long time I did actually have, I moved around and I did a lot at festivals when I was learning. And I learned the hard way that not defining clear boundaries can have a pretty severe consequence. A lot of confusion strays in. And that's part of the challenge of working with energetics, is that what we focus on becomes amplified under many circumstances. So in many ways it's helpful to ignore. If you would just ignore a lot of stuff, it keeps some things less volatile. Once you start to look into the gears, so to speak, it could be squirrely. Things could get exaggerated, and if you just sort of start to stare at like repressed anger, it can unleash in a way that's not productive. That's not actually going to help someone heal. So it's important to have parameters around how we address things as best as possible.
This may be what I need. Not only I have a physical back injury thing, but also I'm struggling with relapse of alcoholism and other mind-altering substance, but particularly alcohol bothers me. And I was trying to get some sort of psychological treatment, but I don't really believe in psychomeds and all that, but there were some therapies. But then I keep getting stonewalled with mental health won't see me because I don't have a mental health diagnosis, and just I could go on and on about it. But anyway, it may be best to put that all aside and maybe, this will just be one sample
how about this?
session.
I would say that those choices are up to you. I could support you learning a different relationship to some of the forces involved. And I can support anybody who's under those kind of challenges. They could make that an addition or a supplement or core to what you do. It's up to you. I'm not part of learning about how energy works is that I highly value empowering people as best I can. You are your own sovereign. You're in charge of yourself. So I don't take care of people in the way you might think a doctor would. I don't tell you what you need to do. I help you understand what's happening. And then I can say, hey, you might want to try this. And then you try it. But the responsibility is on you. You have to make your own decisions. And the gift of that is that when you do choose a path that works for you, it's yours. It's not me pushing you there. It's not me holding you there. And as a result, you have a lot more authority and strength when you do make those changes. Now, the one thing I would speak to quickly is you mentioned lower back problems. Now, this is one of the most common things that happens with energetics. And it's exciting to begin to learn about for a lot of reasons. But the first is often, when increased energy flows through your system, it hurts. Now, people will typically react against that, like, "Oh shit, this is excuse me, I don't know if you could beep that or something, or whether you're
No, you
allowed
can
to,
say
whatever."
anything.
All right,
You want
well,
to come face
You
this?
got it.
Chris,
you
come
got a
this
fruit
way a
fly.
little more.
Okay.
All right.
So
Fruit fly.
imagine
Good, it's going.
imagine a river, or imagine a stream, and the water sort of trickles down the stream. It does its thing. There's a pool that doesn't really move much. The water goes this way. There's a dead tree. A deer comes down, drinks from this pool, and it gets sick because the water's stagnant. And the deer dies and falls into the tree, and there's just junk in the stream.
Oh.
But the water keeps going. You know, it's like it does its thing, and it becomes normal to see the stream in this way. If it suddenly, after years of this, starts to rain more, twice as much water is going to start going through that stream. And when twice as much water goes through, it's going to stir everything up. So that stagnant, somewhat sick pool is going to suddenly flood to the surface. The dead deer flood to the surface. The tree starts to move. And it's extremely uncomfortable. All of a sudden, you have to look at all this junk. And if you see that as a bad thing, you're missing the chance to flush it. And that's what people do. People go, "Oh man, this hurts." Well, I'll tell you why it hurts. It's because there's constraint. Your system probably has things stuck in it from over the course of your life, and you're just used to that. And so when more water, it's a metaphor, it's the more energy is flowing through you, and it's going to start to bash into things that you've been used to just leaving alone. And when it does that, you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to actually move those things through. But you have to first contend with this sense that it hurts. Yeah, and one of the most common places for it to hurt is your lower back. So it's super consistent, and it often can be a sign that something good is happening. And I would immediately ask, have you been through any strong positive changes lately?
All kinds of changes.
But positive, things that you're excited about.
Yeah, in the sense I've got clean and sober now. I'm coming up on.
Well, that's significant.
Like,
you know,
yeah.
change a pattern like that, and it's gonna change things. So all of a sudden,
the show's going better now. They're actually
That's
going,
enough.
because when I relapse, I
That's
don't
enough.
even do anything.
That's
And
enough,
one of the
you know?
major things that I keep out of.
and again, you know, I'm not competing with substance abuse counseling. You know, I'm not saying you should or should not do that. But what I can suggest is that if you have a consistently painful wound or pattern in your life, it's tempting to numb it, and people often self-medicate in one way or another. Now, it's extremely unhealthy to do that for obvious reasons. It fries you, but underneath that is something else going on. You know, something drives individuals to try to numb out. What? There's a pain. There's something you're avoiding. And that's the core challenge, and that's akin to the dead tree in your system. So what you want to do is be able to somehow identify that and go after it. And if you can do that on purpose, you might not have to go through the pain of flushing your system the hard way.
Nice. Wow, we're learning about this whole thing right here
Well,
for the Mr. Clean Show. Yes.
that's hopefully the idea.
Yeah, and so we're going to do this other production where maybe you take me through an actual session, if that's okay. If we could just talk Tom into helping us.
And I'm open to that, and it's helpful to set you up for it, and it's helpful to share the things I've shared already, just as a starting point. That when you start to move energy through your system, you really have to be willing to face things that you might have been hiding from. And if you decide to check out when that shit comes up, the process can be very uncomfortable. You know, you sort of have to have the will to move through. And American attitudes towards health don't always fit with what's really going to work. And a simpler example of that would be like a fever. Now, a fever can be detrimental to your system. It can get too hot. It can be unhealthy. However, fevers exist to burn infection, right? That's why they happen.
Yeah.
So the real challenge when you have a fever is the infection. Now, if you just turn off the fever, you might not kill the infection. You have to make sure that you allow natural processes to do their job. An even simpler version is like a sniffly nose. That happens when there are too many. You're vulnerable for some reason, and then the nasal passage blocks itself so you don't take on more pathogens from the air. So just clearing the stuffy nose is not necessarily the best idea. Now, it's obviously uncomfortable to have a runny nose, but it's important to develop a relationship with what happens to our body and the symptoms we go through that is willing to look underneath them and identify what's the real core challenge here, what's really wrong. Because if you just want to feel okay, well, people do that. People self-medicate in a wide variety of ways, and that'll take the pain away, but that won't turn you into a strong, vibrant, thriving person. And I am here to help people who are willing to move through some of those difficulties into something much better than it was before, which is often somewhat painful. It can be painful, you know. You have to be willing to put up with that on a variety of levels. Are you? You know, like.
Yeah. I'm thinking that it's the reason for the relapses and also perhaps the back pain. A lot of it. I do have an actual injury, but a lot of it is early childhood abuse issues, and that's what I wanted to get therapy for. And then they stonewalled me. Yeah,
that's enough. And
I think that's plagued me all my life.
Well, think about this from an energetic perspective. You know, we don't even, in many cases, I don't even need to discuss details. All you need to know is that everything that happens to you has a vibration. It's like a little song recorded in your energy field.
Oh.
And if you don't resolve it, you have to keep feeding it. Every morning you wake up and you actually feed a little bit of energy into that song. It's like you press play. So if you have 100 units, 100 strands of light every morning, and you haven't resolved a certain wound, 15, 25 of them get invested in the wound. And so all of a sudden you have 75% of your energy, and you have this little wound going, right? It's like this little song. So it exists every day. It's like in your system. It gets in the way, and it becomes a constant sparring partner. You're probably used to it, particularly if it starts as a child. And everybody contends with this. Anything that's gone fundamentally, consistently wrong for people in their childhood, you have to somehow resolve it so that your system can trust that it's over. It's really complete. You're not like paranoid waiting for it to bother you again.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people don't necessarily want to do that because it can feel like going backwards. You know, it's like for instance, if you were in a consistently abusive pattern, it doesn't matter with who or how often, but if you were in an environment where you've consistently felt threatened, part of you learned to be paranoid as a norm. And in order to get over that, you somehow have to be present with those old feelings. Well, that feels like all of a sudden you're a kid again. It's scarier because you're not surrounded by the same threats now, right? So a lot of people stay stuck. It's akin to like you were born in hell, you get to purgatory. A lot of people don't want to leave purgatory because purgatory's not hell, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is if you bring this shit up, it feels like hell's back. You know?
Ah.
So you have to be willing to move through that in order to get into heaven. It's kind of a simplified.
I see. Stir it up so you can get out of the purgatory.
You want to let it go.
Yeah.
You want it out of your system, but you can't get rid of it without somehow contending with it. You have to be able to be present with it enough to allow it. Not just you can't just throw it away. You have to essentially dissolve your relationship to it and transcend it. And this is what it's often called karma. Karma is a very present dynamic. Karma is the presence of energy that has existed already. So basically, if I punch someone in the face, karma doesn't mean I'm a bad person, I deserve to get punched back. It means I'm essentially broadcasting in my energy field that I might punch someone else in the face because I just did that. You can't hide from it. So to deal with your karma means to somehow change your entire relationship to those forces so that it's gone from your energy field. You are not going to do that again. So it's not about punishment, and a lot of times that can be difficult to grasp, but a wound is karma. It's somehow in there. It's in your experience. It's present, and you have to somehow be present with it. Often being present and caring about yourself enough works. Unfortunately, what frequently happens is that if someone has been hurt badly, the easiest way to get out of the pain temporarily is to be an abusive person.
Oh.
It's like flipping the dynamic. So it's
That's
like
why you'll see
hurt
these people
hurt people. And it's very energetic. And it's very tempting for people to do that. It's like it feels powerful. But that's being trapped in a karmic cycle. That means you're never going to get away from those patterns. Every day you might find people who are going to end up a part of this little drama with you. Because whether you can see it or not, your energy field is just, it's announcing, this is who you are, this is what you're dealing with, this is who you are, this is what you're dealing with. And this is a long way of addressing something specific that energy work can help with. Because for me, these things are pretty obvious. I can see quite quickly the most dominant themes in people's lives. And it's helpful, people might not get to the point where they're actually seeing the resonance in the way I do, but there's a lot of things you can do to develop a relationship with these forces that gives you much more influence. Now, you've heard of a gut instinct?
Yeah.
What's a gut instinct to you?
That is something that supersedes just your intellect. That you feel it in your spirit.
Yeah.
That your intuition, you feel it, and then even though it may be correlated with the intellect as well, but sometimes like completely contradictory.
That's great.
To the field.
Yeah, that's great. And that's often easiest to focus on by literally focusing on your gut. The navel chakra is one of the first places we can pick up things like that. As you said, it supersedes the intellect. It's telling you early something in this environment is wrong, something in this interaction is wrong. You need to do something to change it. And if you decide that you need a reason before you act on that, you're completely cutting off your ability to work with your own energy field in a lot of ways, because sometimes the reason doesn't become apparent until later. And so there's a real trust factor involved in saying, I'm going to learn to respect my gut instincts, and when I enter an environment where I have a clear enough sense that there's something off, I'm going to leave, and maybe 3 days from then I'll understand why I had to do that. Now, there are many of these things that are kind of present in people's minds, like you're bearing a burden on your shoulders. You're familiar with this kind of... It's exactly how it works.
Did it actually feel?
This chakra here, between...
Oh, it correlates with that chakra.
Yeah, the throat and the heart, there's one in between. I call it the lung chakra. Some people call it the high heart, but I find that confusing. So this chakra is about the plans and investment you're making day to day in life. So I use the metaphor of a garden. Like, what are you growing in your life? And when you bear a burden for someone else, it's kind of like ripping up a whole area of your garden and planting what they tell you to plant.
Oh.
And you can feel it because it's out of sync with your own life. So it's dissonant in you, and it creates tension here. Now, if you address that tension as if it's primarily physical, you're never going to solve the problem. Because in that particular case, people make a choice to be responsible for someone else. Like, if I could, and back me off if you feel it's too personal, but typically people who are deeply addicted may be in relationship with other people who enable them, because they just develop a pattern, in their community or in their lives. And the person who enables is essentially like, say we're talking about tobacco. It means that enabler is essentially growing tobacco in their garden, even though they don't want tobacco in their garden. And that becomes a burden on their shoulders because it's not good for them to invest. They would prefer to be growing tomatoes or lavender or something that's healthy for them. So I can help you learn to tune into these things, and it actually does end up being as simple as learning to focus on whatever area of the body is correlated to these themes. Like another simple one is a broken heart. You've experienced, you know what I'm saying when I say a broken heart. Exactly that happens. The heart, when we're in love, creates a flow with someone else. It's like you decide to sing a particular song with another individual. If that person leaves, the song falls apart because your accompaniment is a very balanced dance. And it feels broken, because you have essentially woven yourself with another individual in those times. So, and that lives right here in what people call the heart chakra. And when that's happened, we have to somehow learn to help you be present with this part of yourself and change the song. And if you don't change the song, the heart stays broken. So there's another way that, it's like, it's in our lives. How many songs talk about a broken heart? It's there for people, but we don't necessarily teach the overall knowledge of how energy centers work. And that's a lot of what I do, is try to help people get connected. Yeah, the joy for me is to help make it, to give you as much influence over this process as possible. To give you as much influence over the, I don't know whether to look at the camera or not, how it works, but as much as possible, I prefer not to be the person who fixes you. Now, I can do a lot of things. I can literally move energy in a way that puts you in a better position. But the problem is, if you depend on me to shift the energy, once I'm gone, you'll just go back. You just go back to the old pattern. So a lot of times what I can do is I can give people the experience of having a pattern in a healthy balance. But then I do my best to teach you how you can develop patterns that will keep it changed. And for that reason, I address it in these three simple levels: mind, spirit, and body. And at any given point, any one of those levels might be the most appropriate place for you to put your focus. So a lot of times, if you just do therapy, you can get very deep. You know, I've had extremely wonderful success working with therapists in my past, but I had even more success when I worked with a therapist who did something called EMDR, which is, it was used to help heal post-traumatic stress disorder. And what they do is they go between feeling in your body and your thoughts. And it goes back and forth. And when someone has been through a trauma, if you try to talk about the trauma, essentially, it's fairly consistent that a trauma survivor or someone who's been through trauma will tell a story and then it'll become fractured. They won't be able to maintain a coherent linear thread because part of them checked out when they were there. They couldn't be present. It was terrifying. It was painful. So what EMDR does is it takes you from the story, and as soon as you check out, as soon as the story falls apart, you say, what do you feel? What are you feeling in your body now? And you focus there. You focus on that, and eventually it will bring up a thread that goes in a different direction that your mind couldn't have followed. And I actually went through this process and learned to really closely relate my mind and my thoughts with the resonance that I can feel in my body. And you could keep going with that. You can generate positive dreams and learn to feel them. And once you learn to feel where your dream resides, you can breathe life into it. You can make it stronger.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's a lot of gifts of learning to recognize forces in this way.
Excellent. I can't wait to. I mean, I wish I could get continuous therapy, but this, I think, just the one sample session will help a lot.
You know,
for
the most part,
this interview has helped a lot.
And you know, you make yourself vulnerable by sharing some of your story, so that can be a gift to other people, in that, you know, they can follow that lead ideally. I have found that the most healthy response to any sickness or wounded life usually comes from several different directions. And if you have been interested in therapy, I'd encourage you to look at EMDR, because it does do such a great job of relating, and there are practitioners in Ithaca who do that.
That's been recommended several times.
Well, I highly recommend it. It's really powerful. What I do does not take people through that kind of engagement week after week after week, focusing on a particular challenge. What I do is help you place it. This is something that I can help someone say, this block in your life is really undermining this, this, and this. You can't keep pounding yourself at the wall trying to make a dream real if some wound in you is sabotaging it. So then we bring in someone who can talk to you about the specific details enough to bring it out, and I continue to help coach someone in how they can empower your system to accomplish other things, how you can take the loose strands of the wound and weave them back into your life in another way. And I can help you identify whether it's done or not, which is also a very useful process.
Yeah.
You know, just guessing numbers. I mean, it's based on proportions of light and intensity of light. But you know, I can help people say, you know, about 20% of your energy is lost to that. Every day you're waking up and just throwing it away, just getting rid of a certain proportion of your energy. Would you like to change that? You know, and
yeah,
it's worth it, and it can be difficult.
Excellent. Anything more? Or
well, I mean, I can go on and on and on. The context is that there are a lot of energy modalities present in America now. They're not mostly mainstream, but some of them are getting there. Like you've heard of Reiki.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, Reiki is super beautiful because it's not masquerading as a sort of mental practice. You're not looking at something and moving it over to the left and then stitching or something. what you're doing, or what a Reiki practitioner does, is learns to surrender and let the Holy Spirit move through you. Now, the original founder of Reiki was a Christian monk who was going to search for how Jesus and the disciples had healed people. And after 21 years, he made some major breakthroughs on how to do it. And what he found was the primary challenge is to surrender yourself as a healer deeply enough into trust to let love flow through you. And what you're essentially saying is, it's not my energy. It's energy from the world moving through that you need. So you don't stop to measure what's happening as much. You be a channel for that energy. And that's a primary tool that I use a lot. Now, there are other modalities. Something called polarity therapy is really quite remarkable, and it is much more specific about identifying attention and changing positive and negative energy and moving it to shift it over and dislodge it. And there's a lot happening in your energy field. Acupuncture is focusing on an even denser level of energy. It's closer to the material plane. The wavelength is longer than the small wavelengths of prana that we're talking about, the chakras. So the longer wavelength that we're dealing with in the meridian system, they actually have specific channels that they've studied for thousands of years. And those channels can get blocked, and that's what the needles are for. They help open them in specific ways that helps the whole system do its own thing. And that's part of what's really cool about most modalities of energy, is that unlike our Western, what's called often allopathic medicine, it's quite mechanical. It's thinking in terms of this valve is stuck or this wound needs stitching. Now, it's absolutely phenomenal at a ton of things, but it is not nearly as good in other ways. And many forms of energy work are essentially, they're working with a deeper level of trust in saying your body knows how to heal itself. Your body knows how to do miracles. There are outlandish cases in which people have regrown fingers that have been cut off. It happens. So how can we do our best to tap into your body's deepest power on its own? And how can we support that? How can we fuel it and get out of the way as much as possible of controlling the things that we don't really know how to control? So it's a consistently more mysterious awareness and experience with life. And that can be challenging. It hasn't reached deep academic study yet. Now, Reiki's been studied pretty thoroughly in multiple cases, most notably at Duke. And they did phenomenal work identifying that in multiple cases, someone can help a patient heal 40% more effectively than they would otherwise from afar, without even touching the person, just by praying for them. They can help a 40% improvement overall in their study. But for some reason, these numbers haven't filtered into people's minds, or most major surgeries would involve Reiki. So we're every period of history involves precipices in which something is doubted and people don't believe in it, and then for whatever reason, enough change happens, enough proof happens, and it catches on. And I think we're at the edge of a time when energy work in many forms and holistic health in many forms start to really enter the mainstream, because mainstream medicine's out of balance. It's brilliant in many ways, but it's out of balance. It's heavily focused in some ways, and it's ignoring experience from pretty much most other major world cultures. I've studied with a lot of shamans who work on a different level of energetic connection, a lot of visioning, and a lot of, the best version in America would be sort of positive thinking, I would think. But what shamans are doing is they're living there, and they're trying to engage woundedness. Often is something that they perceive more as like an active living spirit. Like the wound has its own spirit. And they can sometimes chant and use smoke and a particular kind of prayerful connection to the earth to get a wounded spirit to leave a body and help the body let go. And when the body doesn't have to fight some of it's happening. There's something happening. We just haven't developed the instruments to measure this stuff yet, right? But we will. We will figure out how to put the right electrodes and have a little thing like this that you point and pick up these forces, because I feel it. When I enter a room, it's an exaggeration of what we talked about as the gut instinct. When I enter rooms, I know a lot about what's happening in the room. When I meet a person, I know a lot about what's happening for them, simply because everyone's broadcasting a lot more information than you may think. Now, I'm sure, given how tangibly I feel this, that we're gonna develop machines that measure it. And I've been excited enough to run ahead and do my best to learn from everyone who has been paying attention to this. And there's a lot of people who are, you know, some of this stuff is ancient, some of it's really ancient. And for whatever reason, you know, Western, the allopathic university mind still has walls up against a lot of this stuff because it's tougher to measure, it's tougher to study, but it's going to be worth it. You know, so I appreciate the chance to talk about it in this way.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm just starting a thing with Cornell. They had a healthy aging study in the chronic pain, and like I have to do an hour interview on Friday, and then every day for a week. I don't know what it's all about.
I
need the $50.
It's awesome, and I think things are edging in the right direction. Ironically, I actually worked at Cornell Medical School in New York City out of college. I was a computer networker, and
they have a medical school?
They have a medical school in New York City because there isn't enough going on in Ithaca. There aren't enough sick people in Ithaca for them to have a medical school. So they developed a relationship and took over a hospital in New York City quite a while ago. And it was when I worked there that I started to get the insights that led to what I'm doing now. And I felt a connection to a spiritual guidance in this university hospital that was essentially taking me in a different direction from what I thought I was going to do. It was dot-com boom time. So just my basic computer skills got me a job easily, and it was quite exciting. I mean, anybody who knew anything about computers then could make a lot of money. But I started to get this inspiration to focus in a very different way on insight that I didn't even believe existed at first. And it took my attention. And this is where it's interesting, because a lot of the university and school system approach to thinking says, basically, we're not going to trust something until you can prove it. But the curious edge that we've got to is that some of these phenomenon you won't be able to see them unless you put enough trust in them first. Now, you don't have to like blindly dive head first, but you can't sit there going, I don't believe this, I don't believe this, I don't believe this. Now listen to me when I say
that'll
this.
block it.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, I don't believe this, I don't believe this. It's harsh. You can hear it, right? So what I'm suggesting is that harshness exists. It has a energy. It will make it impossible for you to sense some of the more subtle intuitions that are available. So that's why I think a big part of the reason we're stuck right now. We could study this stuff, but we have to do it in a different way. There has to be some reverence involved. You have to sort of like step into the garden and be like, shit, I don't know what I might kill if I step too quickly. You have to be more careful. And the university mind is much more aggressive at the moment. You know, there's a lot of sort of like, if you attack an idea, it'll make it stronger. That's not always true. You know, attack a seedling, they don't get crushed. You know, like, so a lot of things are not accessible if you approach them with that kind of attitude. Skepticism itself, if it's too hostile, will actually just wipe away a lot of insight. So what we're looking at is a time when, you know, we're going to need to decide as a culture whether we can put more respect in the hands of what has been mocked for a long time. You know, like faith healings. It seems very clear to me at this point in my career and path, but for some reason this isn't obvious yet. But think about, you've heard of the placebo effect, right? Well, what's a placebo?
It's just nothing. It's an empty,
yeah, exactly.
It's a pill,
you believe in it, right? So the doctor gives you a pill, and they say it's going to help you heal, but it's really just a sugar pill, and it's your belief that heals you. Now, almost every major medical study includes a placebo trial group, right? Because they want to determine, is it just the placebo effect that's making them well, or is there a difference when they start to like use the chemistry differently? Well, why don't they study the placebo effect?
Yeah.
Why don't they study how to help people believe in their own healing power more? It doesn't make any sense that they don't do that, you know, but there's just a block. They're right at the edge. They know full well that if someone believes that something's going to help them heal, that it helps them heal. They know that, but they should put a ton of attention into articulating how can we empower people to do the best job helping themselves to heal. And as it so happens, a lot of their approaches are very negative to that result. The way you talk to a patient about the challenges they're facing can have a huge effect on their outlook.
Totally, yeah.
You know, And in my experience, many doctors, it's haphazard, there aren't standards here, but many doctors sort of feel like it's integrity for them to tell the truth about how dangerous a situation might be. Well, that could have the reverse effect. That could get people panicked.
Mm-hmm.
One of my wife read a book recently by a man, a doctor, Bernie Siegel. He's really an amazing doctor. And he tells a story about a woman who, she was facing a lethal disease, and none of the medical treatment worked. So she went to Mexico, where she had a cousin who knew a healer, a traditional earth, a woman connected to the earth, connected to herbs, who could help her with this illness. And she went, and it worked. All her signs of this disease left, and she was healthy, well past the time she was told she would live. And then after a while, she went back home to Arizona, and she bumped into one of the doctors who had treated her. And the doctor said, "How are you?" And she said, "Oh my God, he's like sort of surprised that she looked good." And she said, "Oh, I'm wonderful. You know what I did? I went down to Mexico and I worked with someone on this treatment." And the doctor said, "Oh, you should never have done that. That stuff is all hogwash. It doesn't work." She died.
Oh my God.
She died.
Because that bastard put the nut.
It's the reverse placebo effect. Our fear can have a dramatic effect in making things much worse. So we really need to give much more attention to how these dynamics function. And the only way we're going to get there is to have more reverence for faith. You can't just be completely disrespectful of faith healers, of people who have less proof. And I think it's okay to say many of these modalities have not been studied enough. They might not even be consistent enough. We could do a lot to improve them with study, but it can't be this aggressive, knock it over, they're all bullshit approach. It's not healthy.
This is what I tell people about when I try to tell them about spiritual things. Oh, I don't believe in that. I say, well, but I'll believe it when I see it, is the idea. And I say, no, you'll never see it unless you believe it.
There are phenomena in which that's true. There are some thresholds that you'll never cross unless you have enough faith first. Now, you might be able to prove it later, and I'm not suggesting we just eliminate study. I think there's a lot of value in the American academic model. For one thing, and this is important, many of these traditions that we've inherited this knowledge from are very hierarchical. They pass through a lineage, and they stay rigidly connected to that lineage, and then they'll use the term master in many cultures, master or something akin to that, and they essentially give themselves over to this person. It's more than just a teacher. Now, in the American model, we have several teachers at once, and we're allowed to argue with them. That's very healthy by these standards. It prevents people from misusing their power. And a lot of the leaders I'm not going to do anything by name, but a lot of the people who are powerful in other traditions do misuse their power. They misuse it sexually, they misuse it financially, they just are abusive personalities and too dominating and crush people's will. So what we really need is to bridge these gaps and to bring a reverent, faithful level of study to a lot of holistic work that really shows a ton of promise and could do a lot more if we studied it well. And eventually we'll get our machines to measure it. We just can't put the fucking machines first. It's not healthy to keep putting machines and our ability to quantify everything. It can't always be first. Sometimes it has to be a little more patient than that.
Yeah.
So, I love this stuff. It's like I love thinking about it. I love working with it. And it's a real paradigm shift. A lot of times there are challenges that people can experience that if you really want to heal it, you might have to change 4 other things in your life as well. And so there's an unconscious resistance to learning because there's a sense, a gut instinct, that if you actually change, it'll be really destabilizing. And a lot of people turn back at that point, and it brings me back to the stream. If what wants to happen energetically, you're a torus. You've heard of the term a torus? It's like a donut. So the energy goes like this, around you.
Oh.
So if more energy flows through your system, you have more energy available to channel into what you do. But if you channel more energy through your system, you have to face all the things that are stuck. So what will often happen is people will go after a dream. They've always wanted to, have a TV show, all right? Do you mind me if I use you?
No, that's fine.
They've always wanted to have a TV show, but for some reason it hasn't worked. And if you end up pushing through and making it happen week after week and reflecting on your episodes and getting better at it, you're going to make more energy flow through your life.
All right.
Well, as soon as you make more energy flow through your life, it's gonna force you to face things that might be less comfortable. The roots of your addictions will be more apparent to you. Other things that you might not be on your radar yet will come to the surface, and you have to be committed to continuing to address those things, or you will essentially shut the system down. More life will be flowing through you, and you'll be saying, no, 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 this is too unhappy, this is too painful, and as a result, eventually that prayer will win. It'll rain less, less energy will flow through, and you'll go back to the old stasis, and you won't get your dream. And that's why a lot of people, it's a broad statement and it's really consistent. A lot of people will not take steps to make their dreams real because they have to face things they don't want to face. And the goal is to have enough trust to move through that, be prepared for discomfort, and keep going. And eventually you get the junk out of your river. If that makes sense.
So here's
Yeah,
a question.
back to the deer.
Yeah.
So why do you think some people are really so, I'd say, obsessed with their own spiritual energy and this feeling like they want to constantly improve on themselves, and they may, in a sense, exclude others in their lives, or they don't have those human connections that they might have otherwise if they weren't sort of continually thinking about themselves and their own levels of energy and how to keep improving their energy?
Sure. There are a couple of things. First of all, did you ever read the Odyssey?
Not the whole thing.
But you know what I'm talking about, right? It's important because this is Ithaca. The Odyssey is a story about Odysseus trying to get back to Ithaca.
Right.
Now he goes on a lot of challenges in that journey, and one of them is called the Scylla and Charybdis. He's taking his ship and he's taking it through a fairly narrow strait. And on one side of the strait is a monster that's like an octopus that sucks in water and crushes the ships. On the other side are these mer creatures with spears that have ropes on them. And they throw the spears and they pull the boat and smash it against the rocks. And the metaphor here, he had to learn how to go right between them in order to be safe. Now this is not typically the Western attitude. This is more yin-yang. Typically, I think, I'm generalizing, but the mind that we're raised with in our school system and everything is looking for more direction answers. This way is right, this way is wrong. And that's not how this stuff really works. So basically, you could have a lot of inspiration if you go and start focusing on spirit. You could heal a lot. You could get out of a lot of pain. You could change addictive patterns. But if you go too far in that direction, you'll be out of touch with your body. You'll be out of touch with the world around you. Essentially, that often happens because people have a wound in their body, and they've been getting hurt day after day after day. They've been experiencing this wound, and they want to get away from it. So you can misuse spiritual awareness and hide there. And that's why my work in particular emphasizes this relationship between mind, spirit, and body, where you really need to get all three of those things into balance in order to be healthy. And you can't avoid any one of them in order to be strong and present. And people do. It's not higher is better. In fact, what I've found consistently, you've heard of like a higher truth, like enlightenment as if you're ascending. Ascension even is a phrase, right? That's not how it works in my experience. In my experience, and I spent quite a long time learning from a ton of different kinds of people and a ton of different kinds of healing modalities. When you break open higher truths, vibrations that are literally a higher frequency, you actually break open lower awareness as well. Now, lower awareness in this case, I'm going to say, is more like animal, earthy passions. So often in sort of extreme spiritual circles that identify themselves as spiritual, you'll have some people with extraordinary anger issues and very volatile emotions all over the place. And in my experience, it's very consistent. If you insist on praying, give me a higher truth, give me a higher truth, give me a higher truth, you're going to break open the floor as well. And the only real way to be healthy is to be more in your body, more present in the physical world, and more aware of these angelic spiritual things together. You have to put them in balance or there's no true health.
Yeah. I wonder if people put a little too much faith in people that are actually healers without looking towards themselves, because it's so easy to be fooled by people who are really just kind of insincere, or like you say, on different types of trips.
Absolutely.
Right. How do people tell the difference? What do you think?
Well, one very, very simple measure that I've used myself is, in my opinion, no teacher should be taking over you. And many kinds of teachers do that. They essentially say, you will be healthy by doing what I tell you to do. Now, often what they'll do is they will very effectively remove something that's gone wrong in your life. Addiction is a big one. People with addictive relationships to some substance in particular will gravitate to a spiritual healer. That healer will be able to effectively help them stop their addiction, but then they will go too far the other direction and give themselves over, and they'll feed on that dominance. Now, I had a very interesting, funny time when I was younger, and I remember a little bit while I was starting to learn about this stuff, I was getting wild insights, and I would tell my friends, and they were a little bit like, "Whoa, calm down, dude. Like that's a bit far for me." And one of my friends, I remember saying, "Look, I honestly think sometimes I think you're gonna like write an amazingly famous book and make a huge impact, and other times I think I'm gonna find you off in Idaho running a cult that's of freaked out people." And I was like, "Wow, I guess maybe that's a compliment." And I kind of stored it, right? And about 10 years later, I met a woman who had lived in a cult in Idaho. It was like a joke on me. And she talked to me about this. And she said a couple of things. She said it was like the guy who ran the cult was dominating them through their crown chakra. So he was like holding them here, and he was grabbing this vibration and keeping it almost as his. And she went with him to Japan on a tour once, and it was just her and him. And she was like, "Wow, he's not the same person without all the people around him." Because what really does happen, and this is where it's kind of a big deal to say things are true whether you believe in them or not. These spiritual dynamics are happening whether you believe in them or not. And we all have a relationship. We all have some really vibrant spiritual food. Now, when 20 people all give their high vibes to one person, that person can ride them, and they can sort of embody those vibes. But that person is essentially not their own person. They are dependent on all these people believing in them in that way. And I saw this again and again and again, and I saw enough teachers misusing that relationship that I decided that the only real way of integrity is to say, I'm going to do everything I can to empower you. I'm not going to take your best as if it's me. I'm not going to try to get you to kiss my ass, basically. Mm-hmm. And I used that as a barometer. Every time a teacher taught me some really cool stuff, but also tried to make me kiss their ass, I was like, "Hey, thanks, but no thanks." And that's the simplest boundary I think you can keep. Basically, if someone tries to take you over that much, don't learn from them, because there are plenty of people who won't. And that's where I think there's real hope. If we can get the American academic mind, which is too skeptical, to address some of these themes from people who are almost too faithful, they surrender too much without enough knowledge, we can bring this stuff together and empower all of us much, much more. And that's what I try to do as much as I've been able to integrate the knowledge I have. I've written a book. I've written it for 10 years, and I recently published it. At the moment, it's still self-published.
How did they find it?
Say it again. It's on my website, wildflowerfire.com. Now this is, traditionally energy centers have been thought of as flowers. A lot of the chakras are often meditated on as if they're a flower. My experience is that when people wake up, their energy centers, they get wild, right? The energy gets wild, like a wild flower, and fire flowing out of it. So that's where the name comes from. And then I get you to kind of focus on this word, wild. Now, when I say wild about humans, usually we mean someone who's out of control. They might, do anything next, or hit you, or scream, or whatever. But wild, as in the wilderness, is honestly very coherent. The wild creatures fit in. They have a freedom for sure, but they actually make very conscious choices. They're very careful. They're very aware. So I'm trying to get people to go from this state where often, for reasons that folks don't necessarily understand, your energy field wakes up. You get more energy flowing through you, so your energy centers get wild in this chaotic way, right? And I'm trying to get people to embrace this intensity, this strength, so that you become wild more like wild in nature, which is a very healthy space to be. And that is also, you know, a response to this fear of spiritual leaders taking over too much. You know, it's so pathetically common that a spiritual leader will teach people amazing stuff and sleep with, you know, tons of women who come to him. And, you know, kind of leave them a wreck and, you know, just like cast them aside, break up relationships, just abuse their power. And it's constant. It happens all over the place. So the best way to avoid that is to own it, like own this intensity as your own and learn how to keep it in balance. And I've been, you know, working with that in myself for a long time. And I honestly think that my relationship to Ithaca had a lot to do with me keeping my cool in some extreme settings, because this is one of the best universities in the world. And my parents both got their doctorates there, and they taught me to have a pretty precise and fierce mind. Now, I don't always like how aggressively they attack ideas and how much they block out things, but I found that I was able to use that precision to question some of these guru leaders who misuse their power. And
nice.
I've woven it together as best I can in this book, which is very like, I took out all the description and I just said, this is how it works as best I understand it. And then when I work with people, I'm more like a guide. I use the term guide frequently. I'm definitely a teacher and a healer, but I'm not going to take you over. I'm not going to fix everything for you. You know, I'm going to do my best to put you in a position to do that yourself.
Let me ask another one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, another question. Thank you, Tom.
No,
'Cause I
got this mic here. So how do you think healing work jives with things like social injustice and income inequality? Because most of my peers, they can't afford people that kind of work in the healing professions outside of,
I'm
typical allopathic medicines.
I am hugely concerned about this because there's basically there's a paradigm right now, a pattern where holistic healing sessions are, they charge anywhere from like $60 to $150, right, for a session. And a lot of people can't afford that. It's not realistic to think that people can afford that on a mass level. Beyond that, when I was learning, I really became aware of how much social justice issues are the source of people's woundedness. It's like people are in a situation, in a pressure, where they can't empower themselves because the patterns of their lives keep knocking them down. So it's like, in order to heal individuals, we really have to start to do a better job of healing the culture also. So on one level, we just have to be committed to that. But as it looks person to person, I did my best to design my work in a way that you could do a lot on your own. And this is really challenging because capitalism doesn't necessarily work well in these modalities. If you just look at, if my goal is to make as much money as possible, and some healers do work that way, if my goal is to make as much money as possible, I would essentially want you to stay sick but feel better when you come to me, right? Mm-hmm. But if I totally healed you in one session, how would I make any money, right? It doesn't work. Now that's exactly the same thing that's happening with our hospitals, right? Now I'm not suggesting that they're actively trying to keep people sick, but at the end of the day, if they healed you like that, they wouldn't keep making money, right? So capitalism is not necessarily the best way to deal with all this stuff. The end result, I think, is that we really have to do our best to share knowledge in a way that people can do as much as possible on their own and take care of each other. And as a result, I've done my best to frame my knowledge in a way where I teach people how to teach themselves. And ideally, the same knowledge that I use to help heal something that's wounded can be used to make you positively healthy.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate these questions. Yeah.
Everything you want to see, healing, energies, everything. I forgot, I'll learn more in editing, maybe.
I'm grateful for your time and interest.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, very good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
This has been a great thing for the Mr. Clean Show, everything you want to see. Signing out for now. All right. That
Okay,
went
we're
great.
out.
Thanks. All right.